Hello and welcome to this video and to August's book review. I think this is possibly the latest I have ever filmed one of those videos because it's currently 9:15 in the evening, but me and Pete are off on an adventure tomorrow and it's the only chance I'm going to have to film this video, although there's a possibility I might have to sneak in another clip if I finish another book before the end of the month, because we've still got about a week left of August, but that's by the by. So we have to film it now. Apologies for any noise, the dishwasher's going, the road noise, all of that kind of stuff. We're just gonna have to go with it, and this is the setup that I've gone with again because it seemed to work last time. So August has been a relatively slow month for reading, I would say. As it stands, I've finished 4 books, but we have been here, there and everywhere, it feels like, over the past however many weeks. And majority of my reading was one series. I basically read The Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, which is really hard to say quickly. The Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Good Girl's Guide to Murder. There we go. So I read books 1, 2 and 3 this month. So we may as well jump in and I'll tell you what I thought of them. So on the whole, I really enjoyed the series. I would say that in terms of favouritism, the first one is the best one and then they get worse as they go along. But I like Holly Jackson's writing. That's the author of The Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I like her writing a lot. So if we start with the first one, which is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, I thought this was super easy. If you don't know, all of these books follow Pip, who is like an amateur sleuth basically. For this one, the first one, she is looking at a case from like 5 years ago for her extended project at school, which is not something I ever did, so it was new to me. Apparently it does happen in the UK. It's all set around Buckinghamshire, these books. But she's doing a project at school where she's looking into this case and trying to say what's happened, despite the fact that the police have already come up with what they believe. On that, normally with these kind of books, I dislike the fact that the protagonist thinks they know better than the police and stuff like that, whereas I never felt like Pip was slating the police's investigation. She just had her hunch and she wanted to go with it. I actually thought she was quite respectful of the police and things. Less so as we go through the series, but certainly in this book. So this is told with elements of mixed media as well as prose, which I liked a lot. I liked the differences, and reading the transcript of her interviews and things like that, I thought that was very clever. And from like the first page I was really intrigued of what was happening in the case and to find out it all. I did guess the first twist, but I didn't guess the second twist. So although I had a vague idea of where it was going, I didn't get the full picture. And for a thriller, it's one that actually had me hooked, which hasn't happened for a little while, so that was good. It also wasn't bad people doing bad things. Pip and her friends are actually fairly decent people, just trying to find the truth. Very, very much would recommend the first one. But obviously as we're going through the series, I then went on to Good Girl, Bad Blood, which takes place almost immediately after the events of this one and follows the same sort of structure with the mixed media and all of that kind of thing. There were a few sort of political digs which I liked, because obviously I'm reasonably close to the publication dates of these. So this one came out in 2020, so I'm actually quite on top of when this one came out, so I know the political digs, but they're not ones that are going to age because they're quite veiled, so that was fun. So again, this one was super easy to read. It was also really intriguing, maybe slightly less so. In this one there is a missing person rather than a murder to solve, and it's an active case rather than a past case. But I liked the fact that she has more involvement of other people in it. Like, she has extra help in this one, which I like a lot. So again, it was a 4.5 along with this one, because again I guessed part of the twist but not the whole twist like this one, so they can't be a 5-star because of that, but I did really, really enjoy them. And then we get on to the last book, and that is As Good as Dead. which I didn't like that much, to be honest. I didn't like how Holly Jackson ended the trilogy. I feel like Pip's personality completely changes. I know, without giving any spoilers, the events of these ones are obviously going to have an impact on her. Yes, I did just hit myself in the face with the book, but I feel like the Pip in this book is not at all related to the Pip of the first two, and I just didn't really like her because of it. I also think this one's a bit too farcical with where it went. We're dealing more with sort of a stalker situation in this one, so it wasn't as much of an investigation, which is what I liked best about the other two, and that's the bit that kept me hooked and kept me reading. Saying that though, this was still one that made me keep turning the pages. I did want to know what happened, I just wasn't very impressed with where it was going. I also did guess one of the big twists very early on. I thought it was way more obvious than any of the twists in the other book, so that irritated me. So the series as a whole, I really like it. Just didn't really like how it ended, which is a shame because I really liked Holly Jackson's writing and how she laid these out and where she sort of took some of it. So I would be intrigued to read more from her. Don't know where she's going to go after this, but I would be intrigued to read more from her. I'm just, as I say, disappointed with how the series ended, and the end was a little bit too tie out with a bow for me. But hey ho, so that was the main bulk of my reading in August, was those 3 books, which means this book review is probably going to be one of my shorter ones, which is probably good for you and me because, as I say, it's late and brain is not really there to be able to film and talk eloquently about books, but hey ho, we're gonna do our best. So those were the why did she make the name so complicated? The Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. So then I went on to a non-fiction pick, and that was Not That Kind of Girl by Lena Dunham, and I kind of wish I hadn't read it. It felt very much like a filler book for me. It didn't really keep my attention at any point. I found myself snoozing quite a lot while reading it, but to give it some positives, this is a memoir by Lena Dunham, who is the creator and actress in The Girls, which is a TV show I've never seen. And if you saw last month's book review, I was saying about how I didn't like memoirs and autobiographies as much of people that I don't know about, which this is, but because this was told episodically rather than chronologically, I found it easier to get on board with. I just didn't really like what she was talking about, and her story sort of blended into one, particularly around men and relationships and that kind of thing. So unfortunately it was a bit of a filler book. I did like the illustrations in it, if that helps. I don't know who drew them, whether it was her or somebody else, but I very much knew I was reading it but didn't really take any of it in, and it won't make any lasting impression on me. But it is one of my very long Kindle TBR, so not too much I can say about that really. So that was Not That Kind of Girl by Lena Dunham. Right, I did say at the beginning that if I finished any more books, I'd jump in to fill you in. As you can see, I'm not anywhere that I normally am. I'm currently in I was going to say hotel room in London, but you'll understand why I can't call it that when my 101 Dalmatians video eventually comes out in a few weeks' time. But also that's why there is a very loud bathroom fan. So apologies if that's irritating. But I have actually finished another book. So the next book I read was The Minute I Saw You by Paige Toon. This is your standard sort of easy contemporary romance, beach ready kind of book, because that's the kind of stuff that Paige Toon tends to write. And I've read a couple of her books, I've liked most of them, and this one was no different. I enjoyed it. It did have some sort of weird pacing issues. It felt a bit chattery at times, and the ending was very drawn out. Like I liked how it ended, but it was very drawn out in how it did it. which was a struggle as I was reading it at like 12 last night to get it finished. This book follows Hannah and Sonny, who both don't do serious long-term relationships. They both have reasons in their past that prevents them from making those long-term connections and prefer to have shorter flings, but then obviously they meet each other in summer, and it's these books, you know what's going to happen. I liked them both. I was rooting for their relationship. It felt quite genuine and enjoyable to watch how it developed. I particularly liked their friends Matilda and Archie. They are so incredibly supportive, and I just hope that we can find some of them in Sheffield. I liked the dynamic of the four of them a lot. It did take some very odd turns, though. Not ones that I particularly hated, but they were odd turns for what is essentially a beach read. It does explore some very deep themes, for example abuse, that if that's something that you wouldn't want to read, I would probably steer clear of this book, and some very odd issues that I didn't expect. And the fan stopped, so you can hear me better. Yes, it did go in directions I wasn't expecting, and I'm still not sure why, but it did kind of work, so I guess that's fine. I liked the setting of this book a lot. It was all based around Cambridge and Grantchester, which is an area I know vaguely well. I was there for 4 years in my childhood years, so I know it a little bit, but the stuff that they were talking about, like punting and certain events that happened in Cambridge over the summer, was stuff that evoked memories in me as well, so it's always fun when a book does that. And then there's a sort of nice string through this book about homelessness and charities and doing things to support the community, and it turns out that Paige Toon was also running some chance to win prizes, and then all of the proceeds from that was going to go to the charities that she mentioned in the book, which I thought was good. One other thing that confused me was the book came out in 2020, yet the references were really old. We were talking about series 1 of Stranger Things and it being the new show, and that appeared quite a lot in it, and I was like, that was years ago. That was way before 2020. So things like that were a bit odd. Some of the references that were chosen, I'm a bit confused about. It dated the book even older than it actually was, and that didn't really make much sense to me. But that was The Minute I Saw You by Paige Toon. And if I happen to finish another book, which I'm not sure I will, but maybe, I'll do another one of these clips and have that in next. Right, I really didn't expect to be filming another clip for this book review, but I have just finished another book, so we're going to add it in, and then I'm going to edit the final bits ready for Wednesday, because it's currently Monday. But I just finished Kim Ji-young, born 1982, by Cho Nam-joo, which is a translated work from Korean, which follows Kim Ji-young's life from birth until 2016, I think it was. So we're looking at her childhood, her sort of college, university life, early career, marriage and babies. I don't normally read translated fiction. I sometimes struggle with it, but this one was reasonably easy, and where there were Korean phrases or Korean concepts, I guess, that don't really have an English translation, they explained it pretty well, so that was useful. But this also has a very non-fiction style to it, despite being a fiction book. I don't think it's based on a real person. It might be, but I don't think so. And it's a real social commentary of being a female and the sheer and utter misogyny that they face in the sort of 80s, 90s, noughties. Now, I say it was up to about 2016, so up to that point, and it just sort of made you angry as a female, or at least made me get a bit frustrated with things, because it was all about women suffering like sexual abuse and sexual harassment in the workplace, being told that they are the problem, about not being able to make high career moves and become top level in the businesses because, you know, they go off and have babies and that kind of thing, and just all of that kind of stuff. The whole book is all sort of wrapped up in the last line where you just want to go. So I won't spoil it if you do want to read it. It's a very short book, which is why I picked it up. It's like under 200 pages because I finished one book while I was down in London, as you saw in the last clip, and wasn't going to be back here until today, so I didn't have a physical book I could pick up, but knew there was a book I wanted to read this week. So I found this little short book all about misogyny in Korea, but there are definitely parallels between the UK and Korea, South Korea. This is obviously, North Korea is probably a whole other story. Although I don't know whether I enjoyed it, it probably is one that I will speak about to other people. So there we go, that was Kim Ji-young, who I'm hoping I'm pronouncing the name right, born 1982 by Cho Nam-ju. So there you go, that was all the books that I read in August, and I am hoping that September is a bit more productive on the reading front. There's less planned. There are no holidays, there are no anything like that going on, so should have a bit more focused time for reading. And I'm on jury duty for a week in September, but we'll cover that in future videos. So there we go. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already and you want to know how I get on with future books or just what's going on in my life, please click that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one, hopefully at a less late hour in the evening where my brain is working slightly better. So I'll see you then. Bye.